with Facebook Live for even more of an audience. So this is our first panel post-COVID. Again, I am Keely Wickersham. Today we will be focusing on innovative teaching strategies during COVID and as we move beyond. Our panelists include Dr. Maquita Blades, Eric Clark, Adam Langingham, and we also have Kobe Wilkerson, or also known as Kobe D. Wiz, who will be connecting via virtually. So as we kick things off, we do want this to be interactive. So those of you in the room, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand for the panelists. Those of you virtually, if you will send that via the chat. And those of you on Facebook Live, once you get connected with us, you can also send us information via chat. Our first scenario for our panelists will be overcoming elementary school students dealing with extreme distraction while logging in virtually.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll preface my response by saying I am a high school teacher. But with that being said, the level of distraction is equal sometimes to those on the elementary level. So I think this advice will still be valuable. I think that as our students deal with so many changes all at once, we have to channel that energy that's leading our students to distraction. So rather than making it a negative, we need to find ways to incorporate time into our classes that will allow students to positively expel that energy. So that means giving them lots of brain breaks, giving lots of opportunities for interaction, allowing students to speak and really become a part of that virtual experience, and not just expecting them to sit and look at the screen. If we compare their attention spans, even when they're in the classroom with us, we know that they get easily distracted there as well, even when we have that bodily proximity to them. So we can expect that to increase when we are not in the same physical space with them. And so again, I just recommend channeling that energy into some type of activity that contributes to the class overall.
All right. Okay, so I too am secondary level, but I've been able and had the opportunity to work with hundreds and thousands of elementary school teachers over the years. And one thing I would encourage you to do is try and keep it as simple as possible. I wrote down that I think there's 3 major points that I think are really important during this time, especially for our elementary level students. I think one of the things that you can do to help with that engagement is continue to offer opportunities to be collaborative, where they're working with other students or connecting somehow with, either connecting with their family, with their parent, somehow have some kind of connection there so that they can continue to keep that process moving. The second thing is instead of trying to be so tech-free outside, I know sometimes people think, well, technology seems to be the trouble half the time. Embrace technology right now. Technology is going to be what helps them be able to communicate, not just through Zoom or, whatever team thing that they do, but allow them to use that technology to be creative. And that leads to my last one, which is allow them to be creative right now. Don't expect a ton of stuff. Just what they give you right now is really, we've got to really channel that creative aspect of what they're trying to do and really embrace that during this time.
Well, I guess my volume's up. Thanks. Well, having worked with kids K through 8, it's not too far off what you guys are saying. Definitely, we need to allow them to be creative. We need to allow them to have a say. Whether you're in the classroom or not, if the students don't find meaning in what they're doing, they're not going to do it unless their parent or teacher is forcing them. And virtually, it's kind of hard to do that as a teacher. So if the students are finding novelty creativity, something different, unique that catches them by surprise and gets them hooked, they'll do it. If they see meaning in it, if you're explaining the why behind this work, I am giving you this piece of work because it will help lead you to X, Y, and Z, that also will engage them better. So whether it's virtual or not, if the student doesn't see meaning, they're likely not to do it. And I focus on the gifted kiddos, and I'll tell you right now, those gifted kids, if they're not engaged, they're getting into mischief. So even the parents at home will appreciate them being more engaged if, again, you're hooking them with that novelty and showing them the why.
Okay. Do we have Kobe with us?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you see me? Yes, overcoming elementary students with extreme distraction. I have what I like to say is I have 9 components of engaging instruction. And for this, the first one is teaching in 7 to 10 minute increments, right? I call it, 7 to 10 if you want to win. Okay. So if you really want to keep them engaged and free from distractions, like you have to make sure that you're teaching, in 7 to 10 minute increments. And then having the expectation, right? So it's a ping pong game. Okay. So 7 to 10 minutes, you teach, and then they do something, right? And then they give it back to you. Then they have an opportunity to share. And so it's really about keeping them engaged in the learning that's happening. And so when they don't feel like they're in the learning, when you're talking, like they don't have time, they don't have time and they don't feel a part. And so if you're teaching in, 5 to 7, really, 7 to 10 is long, but because after 7 to 10 minutes, they're looking for a commercial. You know what I mean? They're looking for a commercial. And so you have to give them an opportunity to share and to demonstrate the learning that you're looking for them. And so those are my 2 tips. So keep them engaged, give them an opportunity to demonstrate the learning, and don't talk for any more than 7 to 10. 7 to 10 if you want to win.
Okay. So our next scenario for our panelists, and also feel free to jump in virtually, Facebook Live, as well as you here in the audience. We do have some experts back there from Wyoming that may want to hop in on this. So bringing certainty to the uncertain times with the election outcome, COVID-19, and racial awakening. How do you bring that about in the classroom?
Bringing certainty into the classroom when our students are faced with so much uncertainty around them. I always believe in the direct approach and just setting expectations. So I think as much as we can control, which is not a lot, we know that even the expectations being placed on teachers right now are ever changing. We have to make sure that we are structuring our classes virtually, in person, hybrid, whatever that model is. Make sure that there's some structure and students know what types of components to expect when they walk into or log into your learning space. Not meaning that you're going to do the exact same activities every day, but that you're going to do things in the same types of way every day. And I do love the comment that was made about embracing technology, but in doing so, because so much technology has just been placed in front of us now that we are going virtually and hybridly, it's important to remember, though, that we want to use that tech with intentionality. So we shouldn't be introducing new platforms and new apps to our students with every new assignment. We need to make sure that we're selecting the best tech to meet our learning outcomes, and then really helping our students learn how to use it so that they can apply the use of that technology in other areas that will give them some consistency as well. But if they're having to log in every day and then always go to a different platform and download something new for every different lesson, then we're just adding to the uncertainty that's already swirling around them. And at a point, they will disengage.
Well, absolutely. I agree. I think technology is one of those things. I'm a huge technology integration guy. And I think if you don't set up those expectations for what that looks like and what you're wanting to use those for within that time, it's going to make things less predictable, which is one of the things that I think is really important when we have our classes going and our lessons up and going with our kids, again, hybrid, virtual, or face-to-face. Predictability is something that the brain really craves, especially in a time when we're anxious. And a lot of these things that Keely mentioned, that they create anxiety for many of us, right? And they're not always comfortable to talk about. But being able to keep a predictable system in front of our kids is very important right now, maybe more important than it's ever been. So I'll echo this in saying that as we lay out our lessons, we need to make sure that when kids come to class, it's not going to be completely different every day. That there's some level of normalcy and consistency from day to day.
I totally agree with that. And I would add that you need to take time to build connections and relationships with your students. It is very hard right now, I know, but virtually is really hard on most kids. And most kids will perform if they love their teacher, if they trust their teacher, if time has been set to have a safe collaborative space where they feel they can share out and not be ridiculed, and that the teacher will allow that and honor that within the classroom. And doing so, you start with the smaller topics, the least controversial topics, and get the students used to what it is like to share in this classroom, how we can express our feelings and thoughts. And then as you build that trust and those relationships, you can move on to some of the more controversial things because you've laid that foundation and the kids feel comfortable doing it.
Is that me?
That's you.
That's it. Awesome. So I think and how you bring about certainty is really about in cultivating and building community. I think that in the classrooms, I think making a commitment to each other that we're going to show up every day. I think helping them to feel a part and that they have some control over, in a space where they feel like they don't have any control. So just having the freedom to be able to speak, and to share what their truth and their feelings are, and knowing that, the students in each classroom are going to show up every day and that you're going to be there for them. I think, being in classrooms, virtually is difficult. It's not just difficult for the students, it's difficult for the teachers, it's difficult for the parents, it's difficult for everybody, right? And so having them knowing that they're showing up every day there matters. I think, people want to feel important. And so I think letting them know that you being here is not just important for me as a teacher, but it's important for your classmates. And it's important for all of us. I think that helps, with this uncertain times, is that I know that in all this stuff that here, I'm going to feel important and I'm going to feel a part.
Okay, to mix things up, of my in-person audience, is there anybody in here who's doing something that you think works pretty well in your school currently to answer that? Anybody? Yep. I'll bring the mic to you or hold it for you. Just so that our virtual audience can hear you as well as the Facebook Live.
I most definitely agree with our last two. Classroom experiences, making that connection with your class before getting into what they need to learn. students need to have an experience and create a love of learning before they're able to walk away with something. Whether you're virtual or you're in person, you want that love of learning. And to get that, you need to have those relationships and build that. In my classroom, we integrate everything together holistically. So we don't have set times for reading, for writing, for math. It's all together, and we create an experience for those students and make those multiple pathways where if they're struggling in one area and succeed in another, that they're able to get to our ultimate goal through something that they love, even in the hard times that we're having right now.
Okay, so for our panelists again, I'm going to switch this up a little bit. If you had 1 minute to train an educator who might be a little technologically challenged or experiencing a little bit of burnout, what is one strategy you would give them to engage their students right now?
For clarification, one technology strategy or just a
Tech-
strategy, period,
or
because they're
strategy.
technologically challenged?
You're wide open. Either burned out or technologically challenged.
I would say to that teacher to just super serve your students in something that you are really skilled at. Don't try to take on anything new, and don't try to do things just because your colleagues are doing it or just because it seems popular in the moment, because it won't be authentic. It's really important for us to just show up for students as who we really are so that they can see the passion behind what we do. Sometimes when we try to do too much or we try to go on trend, that's when we lose who we are, and the students can't really see the love that we have for the content. So I would just say super serve your students by choosing that one strategy that you know is tried and true for you, something that gets them excited, something that you are personally excited about, so that they connect with you, and then in turn they connect with the content.
So I'm going to hit both of those. I think the first one, that I used to tell this to teachers that struggled in integrating technology into their lessons and stuff. The reality of it is really, really hard to break technology. So I'd always tell them, just try it. Try it if you want to. You're not going to damage. I mean, you can damage it, right? But ultimately, it's really hard to destroy it, right? So give it a shot. I will echo that too. I think if something works for you, you need to use that, whatever piece of technology that is, that's genuine, right? Because it does feel fake if you're using something that you're not used to using. I like to also encourage teachers to, we use this phrase called reverse mentoring, allowing kids to teach us a little bit about technology, and especially about, the new things that are out there. That's their language, that's what they use. So I'd encourage teachers to listen to their kids as far as the technology piece is concerned. And just to touch on the last part, because it's something I'm incredibly passionate about. Teachers are exhausted right now, and they're at their end, a lot of them. And what I would encourage you to think about right now is, don't forget about even the littlest of things that are positive in the course of a day, because there's much more positive there than there is negative. And stop taking on too much. All right, you have to remain healthy. All right, that's it.
All right, I had to kind of laugh inside when you said that 1 minute for technology training. That's probably what a lot of teachers felt like they got when we moved into this new world. We know they got more than a minute, but so many times the teachers are just kind of like, here you go, figure it out, make it work. And most teachers, that's kind of what we do every day in the classroom as we're adjusting. But I would kind of echo what you guys had previously said, is find what you're comfortable with, one thing that works for you, and stick to it. The consistency will help you and with the kids. And then finally, realize why you're here, focus on the children. Everything else will come together, but we're here for the kids, not a standard or some kind of pacing guide. Focus on the kiddos.
If I had a minute, I would basically, tell the teachers, first of all, just give yourself some grace. Like give yourself some grace and know that, we're going to tell the teachers what we tell the students. Like, try to get comfortable in being uncomfortable, right? Failing is how we learn. So don't look at the thing because I don't figure out how to use it. I didn't do it the first time. Like, try it. Like, nothing beats a try. Like, you're gonna get stronger, and just don't quit. Like, keep going. And so give yourself some grace. Understand that it's not gonna happen overnight, but your success will happen over time. And so just keep going. Keep trying it, because the more you try it, the better you're gonna get. And that's my 60 seconds.
I just wanted to add a final comment to that, is that sometimes we get into the comparison game with other teachers who may be totally on top of their technology, and they're constantly using the new thing. But we really have to sometimes learn how to just focus in our lane and focus on our own students, because that just adds anxiety, as was mentioned earlier, and it's just added stress that none of us need. So sometimes you just kind of have to block out the noise when it comes to those things as well.
Anyone in the room want to ring on that one? Okay. Give us a strategy to reach those hard to reach students, be it virtually, hybrid, or in person.
For hard to reach students, I always recommend, and it's already been said before, it goes back to the relationships that we build with our students. In my session yesterday, we talked about creating student profiles and just making sure that we are as culturally responsive as possible. And that means just simply acknowledging the contributions of those students who are hard to reach, not shutting them down sometimes when they do have those moments of outburst or when it seems like their answers are just so far off base, but really just kind of finding a way to incorporate the things that they say and do into our lessons, paying attention to those off-putting behaviors and taking a look and just kind of asking ourselves, what could this behavior really be stemming from? And speaking with the student, learning from the student, and then trying to find ways to build that into what we're teaching. Students are typically hard to reach because they just don't feel valued, or they don't see any of themselves in the content that's being taught, or they feel like they don't have a connection with the teacher. So it goes back to those positive relationships.
Yeah, I don't know how many times we've been at these conferences, and everybody will say this, to connect with hard to reach kids, you got to build relationships. Everybody hears that all the time. We always say that. I mean, and we all agree that that's something that we have to do. In order to do that, we have to be able to get in the weeds sometimes when it's not always fun. We have to be able to have conversations with kids when they're challenging moments and they're making things difficult for themselves and sometimes even for our class. I was a high school English teacher, and not a lot of people really enjoy, the kids would come up and they didn't always enjoy English. But one of the things that I found that was really helpful to me at the beginning of the year, of course, so we would do all kinds of surveys, get to know them, fill out your card, all those things. But what I started to find that was really helpful in reaching a lot of those hard to reach kids was being able to put it into whatever form would be most comfortable for them to communicate with. In English, you figure, well, you're going to write a lot of papers, right? Well, a lot of times I would make it open for, if you want to do it, in a music form, if you wanted to do it in video form, if you wanted to do it in audio form, just finding different ways, because a lot of it for me was, I want you to be able to communicate to me in the most honest and vulnerable way possible. And then we'll start working on the writing stuff as that comes. But I just can't say how important it is to, sometimes you've got to be able to go through those difficult moments in order to get to those to build those relationships. It's not always the good times.
I definitely agree with what was just stated. It's the relationships and taking time to do that, making things meaningful, but also realizing that the students don't have to fit into a box. So much time in education, the kids are being pushed into boxes, having to learn the same thing, the same time, perform the same tasks. And I think as teachers, we really need to step back and just look at the big picture. Again, we're here for these children. They are all going to learn differently. They're all going to have different needs. They're all coming with different backgrounds, abilities, traumas, who knows? And I think so much in education, we, as a system, to make it easier, try to put them all into this box and push them through this conveyor belt. And that's where kids start dropping off, whether they be struggling for emotional issues, academic issues, or gifted and just have a brain that's totally outside of the box. I think we kind of need to step back and see, what am I really trying to get out of this kid? And what could that look like? It can look very different for different children, and they can still master whatever the needed concepts are.
Yeah. So reaching the hard to reach, I think it's a people thing, right? So I think that when we're talking about kids, we often forget that they're just little humans, and that all of them have issues because we all have issues. And so sometimes it's about addressing them and connecting. That's what it often is that they're missing the connecting piece. They're mixing the connection piece to the information. They're missing the connection piece to somebody who may have not shown them the power in learning and the ability to. And so what does that look like? People are looking, all of us are looking for people who are genuinely concerned about us and what we're interested in. And you can't find out about me and what I'm interested in until you find out about me. And so what does that look like? So I have I have 10 prompts to connect, and so what those prompts look like is the first one is asking kids, what do you like most about yourself? What do you like least about yourself? What do you like most about school? What do you like least about school? Because what that does is it creates the space for you to be able to connect to them in a way and means that's meaningful to them. And I think that what we have to do is be genuinely and authentic and really trying to connect to them and not trying to just get them to connect them for learning, right? So it's really about caring about the people who are in front of you in a really real and a genuine and a sincere way. And that takes, being interested in who they are, what they are, and what they're really about. So that's how you read hard to reach, not just students, but hard to reach people.
Okay. So I'm going to ask, since you all are in education or have formerly been in education, what is the one website that you found invaluable in teaching?
I need to think about that for a minute. So I'm going to let someone else go first.
The easy one, and just say google.com, right? That would be easy. No. I was a technology integration specialist. So one of the ones that I really liked, and this was basically from middle school up to high school level, was a website called Vocabahead.com. And the reason that I like this is one of the things I was charged with was we had to increase the scores for our kids in the ACT and the SAT. And so there were some amazing videos that show you how to process through and begin to understand different vocabulary words that you might see on the ACT or the SAT. And after having our kids go through that from the middle school all the way up to the high school level, we saw our numbers actually went up over the course of about 2 to 3 years. So that was really, so it's vocabahead.com.
Yeah, I have a hard time narrowing down just one. I think probably one of the most useful ones that I'm hearing from my teachers, and I know this probably goes without saying, is Khan Academy. And letting the kids go in and hear from another teacher, teach a concept a different way. Maybe they are behind in a certain area and they need to fill some holes, or they are mastering things very quickly, especially in math, and they can plow through and move through things much faster. It's really been a tool that's made my teachers' jobs a little nicer.
I'll go ahead and get my credit. This is a easy one for me.
Oh, it's
YouTube.
back to me. Okay. I realize why I'm having so much trouble with this question, and it's not because I don't use any websites, because I do, obviously, for research and references, but I do tend to make up a lot of stuff, constantly adapting things so that they fit for different groups of students. But I would say the websites that I have referenced the most consistently would be PBL Works. And I can never remember if it's .com or .org, so just try both of them. I do a lot of problem-based learning simulations. So PBL Works, and then also teachengineering.com. And even if you're not in a science or STEM course, you will definitely see a lot of the projects on there can be adapted to other content areas, and you can also build in that STEM component. So I do have to just make a quick plug for STEM. If we start with STEM, then we can master every other content area. So PBL Works and teachengineering.com.
Is it me?
It's you.
Okay. For this one, it's an easy one for me. YouTube. YouTube.com. I think that good, bad, or indifferent, that's where our kids are spending most of their time. And so I think as teachers, what we have to do is help them to see and how to navigate content. How we teach it needs to change a little bit, but we need to show them, how do you navigate through good content? Like, what is a good video to teaching and what is it not, and having them compare and contrast. And so I think you can find just about everything that you want on YouTube. I use it when I go in and model teach and talk about and show them 2 videos and then say, well, why is this one a good video and why is this one not? So for me, I think YouTube is invaluable. I think you can learn how to do everything from a math problem to changing oil. So whatever you want to learn, you know, to stretch them, YouTube.
Okay. And I have one as well. We have been doing virtual events over the summer, and I've got to meet actually some new experts that we've never worked with before. And one of them was Sam Carey from Nude Ed Tech Class. And he has a YouTube channel that helps educators kind of go through the rigor of learning new technology to use in the classroom. And it's very step-by-step, hands-on. And I think he is a very good asset to that. My next strategy that we need is how to involve parents.
We talked about this on a previous panel during one of the virtual events, and this is one of the fun questions to answer. At the elementary level, I'm understanding that a lot of parents are actually sitting in on your classes and answering questions for the students and possibly even doing their assignments. So this goes back to the first question that we answered, which was, what do we do with that energy from students when they become distracted? And I'm going to give the same answer. We're going to give our parents opportunities to also participate in our classes. And this is something that I think we really have gotten away from over the years in general. And it's something that we need to bring back. Even as a high school teacher, I found ways to get parents involved, whether it would be inviting them in to witness a lab or participate in a lab, or if my students were conducting a debate or any type of project, I would invite the parents in to allow them to judge or participate in some sort of way. And I think we need to do the same thing when it comes to our virtual classes, especially if the parents are already there and in your space. You need to find a way to redirect their energies and make it a positive experience for both yourself and the students. And then finally, with my students, I always had a reputation for being extremely direct And I'm the same way with my parents. So just as I would allow them time to actively participate in my class, I would also set some very strict boundaries as well to let them know what their expectations are and really hold them accountable to that so that I can serve the students in the best way possible as well.
Yeah, I think the only way that we're going to be really successful is if we are collaborating with our parents. At the secondary level for sure, one of the things that we know when we're face to face, one way to get the parents and guardians to our building is to feed them, right? Well, now we don't have that option because we're virtual, so we've got to feed them a different way, right? So being very specific about what it is that we're trying to accomplish in our classroom right now in the virtual setting is going to be very, very important. So setting out what those expectations are, setting up those barriers, the kind of those expectations for parents, how involved do you need to be? I like to also, I agree with you. I think one of the things that we haven't done very well in our schools at times is at the elementary level, at times we've given homework without giving any kind of explanation. And in the virtual setting, we've got to be even more descriptive about what it is that we're trying to accomplish so that we can have some extra and additional support at home. At the high school level, I know there are many times when I've been frustrated as a dad. I'm so thankful that I have the background in education that I do, because my kids will bring stuff home and not know how to do anything. Well, it always made sense to me that you would want the professional to be helping the student with the questions that they had. So, but I think it's exactly the opposite in the elementary level. I think we have to partner with our parents if we're going to have the success that we want to have.
It's kind of interesting to see this dynamic that's changed with now being mainly virtual. And some of the parents who were very highly involved before are now really involved because they're watching that Zoom at home and see that instruction and what their child is supposed to or not doing, or the level of rigor that's being applied. But then we also have those communities that we really had a hard time reaching parents. It's even harder now to reach them. And I think it kind of goes back to when you try to engage students, you need to make it fun and meaningful. If you're going to be doing something that the parent is going to dread or not enjoy doing, it's easy to avoid it. So back when we were in person, yeah, we'd bring out food, we'd bring out animals, we'd have carnivals and sneak them into parent conferences, or plan those fun events where the kiddos get to share their projects that they've been working on. So if we can try to apply some of those to the parents now, and just remember, it has to be fun and meaningful. Tie it into what their students are learning and doing, that importance, but also try to make it less threatening, more of a partnership, and enjoyable, however you try to plan these.
Okay, Kobe.
All right, so this is what I have. I have MTFI. Make them feel important. Okay, so that's what it's about. And if you want people to be involved, you got to make them feel important. You got to make them feel like you want them there. What we have to realize is that we have parents that have not had great experiences with school, which is why they don't want to show up there, because their experiences weren't all that great. You know what I mean? And so then we have where they don't feel like their time is being valued. You know, they don't feel important. And so, you know, we say we have parent-teacher conferences, you know, for the benefit of the parents, but you have to show up, you know, between this time, 3 and 5 or 6 to 8. Like, really? So we have to be thoughtful about how we engage parents to make them that their time is important, but also helping them to understand that we want them there. You know, we want them to feel that their input is important and that, you know, what they have to add is of value, and that this is really a partnership with both of us trying to help the students to be the very best version of themselves that we can. And so that as a teacher, that I can't just do that by myself. And as a parent, we understand that you need help doing that. So this is what it's about. It's really about a partnership. And so really getting schools and teachers to reach out to parents to say, not only do I want your input, but I really need your input, you know, because, you know, what you know about him or her is different than what I know about him or her. But if we put what you know and what I know together, then we have the best interest and the best possibility about making this student a success.
Okay. And also over the summer, a previous panelist that I asked this question, I felt like had a really good idea. He is out of the state of New York, which is why he is not here with us this week, because he would have had to have quarantined and his district locked him down within the state. But his name is Ronald Gonzalez, and he is at the district level. And they have been engaging their parents virtually. They have a staff member who is a yogi. And so they have, I believe it's Monday mornings, they have parent yoga. And then they stretch together, kind of decompress. The educators are involved with that as well if they want to be. And then they chat, or also online parent coffee breaks. So I thought that that was a really good idea too. Since we are nearing our end of time, I will ask our panelists, what is the one book that you found invaluable?
My favorite book that I've gone back to again and again since I first read it is Moving Beyond Quadrant A. It is by Bernadette Lambert, and it talks about how to incorporate rigor and relevance into your lessons seamlessly and in a way that students don't really know that what they're doing is at a high level of rigor.
If you haven't had a chance to check out Help for Billy by Heather Forbes, talks about how both teachers and parents can best assist students, children who have been through traumatic experiences.
Picking one book is really hard. I'm going to narrow it down to a couple. The Parent's Guide to Gifted Children is one of the best books out there for gifted, to help children and parents understand kind of the beasts they're dealing with. And I'd like to plug some of the books I've written, but one of my true favorites that I'm kind of obsessed with right now is a children's book called A Tale of Two Beasts. And it's an Usborne book, and it is amazing to show how perspective works when you have two totally different people or animals, or however you want to apply it, and how they view and see things, and then see both sides and then have that discussion and apply to the real world. I would use that K through 12.
Okay, Kobe.
I'm gonna give two. I'm gonna give a shameless plug for one of the children's books I've written is called Fred and Mary, and it's about loving yourself, right? And at the end of the day, you can't give what you don't have. And then I'm gonna give a book that I think is super powerful. The work that I do is really not just about teaching, but helping us to all be the best versions of ourselves. And it is the Four Agreements. And I think that, that really is about how do I be the best version of me so that I can show up the best that I can for everybody else. And I think that we get away from that in education, because at the end of the day, yes, it is about the students, but at the end of the day, it's the teachers, who make the students do what they do best. And so if there is no teacher, then, it doesn't benefit the students. So at the end of the day, the Four Agreements really is about shaping, shifting, and molding yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself. And Fred and Mary, which is about how do you love yourself so that you can give that love to everybody else.
Okay, and we will wrap up with how to reach each of our panelists.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Powerful Teaching. That's POWARRFUL. And also on Facebook, Powerful Teaching. Of course, it's 2 words, but it's all 1 word on Instagram and Twitter. Also, you can connect with me through my website, drmarquitablades.com.
First of all, I'll give out my email, Eric at giveem5.com. You can check out our website at giveem5.com as well. You can follow me on Twitter at EricClark_5 or check us out at RCDGive'em5.
I'm at brightchildbooks.com or Adam at Bright Child Books, and as well Facebook Bright Child Books.
And for me, everything is L Kobe the Wiz. So if you want to email me, it's lkobethewiz@gmail. That's LKOBIEDAWIZ@gmail. At Twitter, it's L Kobe the Wiz, and Instagram, it's L Kobe the Wiz. You go to YouTube, type in L Kobe the Wiz, right? Facebook, L Kobe the Wiz. So everything is L Kobe the Wiz. So reach out, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything, YouTube, subscribe. We love you.
Okay. Nothing like a shameless plug.
That's how you get me. How do you connect with me? Go to Google and type in L Kobe the Wiz. I'll show up. I promise.
At any rate, thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you all. Do you guys have any other questions or things that are working in your school before we wrap up? Anything virtually or via Facebook? Nope. All righty. Well, thank you and have a great rest of your evening. We will be back here with Ken Williams tomorrow morning at 8:30. Good night.